Alright guys, Top Gun SoGal is back. I have my co-pilot Scarlett. Scarlett! There you go. Here's Miss Scarlett. Oh! There we go. Scarlett's feeling a little under the weather today. She's got a bit of a rumbly tummy. Oh, look at this. Oh, here we go. And I got Roger here as always. As you can see, we're decked out in our pilot gear right now because we're back with another Air Force themed video, and I'm back with my weird alien eyes again. But you guys know that I am a fan of Air Force videos, kind of learning about the different planes and the different missions and all of that. I think it is probably my favorite branch of the military. And this video that we're doing today is titled Operation Black Buck, Falklands' Most Daring Raid. It was a Patreon request from Mark Williamson. He says, I would be very grateful if you would react to this Channel 4 documentary about the first RAF Vulcan attack on the airfield at Port Stanley in the Falkland Islands that have been captured by the Argentines 40 years ago this year. Fortunately, there's no sound between 4:27 to 6:27, so we're probably just gonna skip that part. Hopefully there's nothing too important that happens during that. But this is a long video. It's 45 minutes, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna split this into two parts. We're gonna do part 1 today, and then I'm gonna try and release part 2 tomorrow for you guys. And also, since this is a Channel 4 documentary, I really hope that it's not gonna get blocked. Oops, my Top Gun thing just fell down. Alright, so this should be interesting. Not only will it be about the Air Force, but I hope to learn a little bit more about the Falklands War. It's something that you guys have been asking me to do for probably close to a year now. And I know this is just one part of the Falklands War, so I will need to watch more videos on this to get a better idea of the overall thing, but I think this will be a good starter. So let's go ahead and jump into Operation Black Buck. And I am going to take these off because it's so weird watching a video with these on.
BBC News at 6 o'clock. The Falkland Islands, the British colony in the South Atlantic, has fallen. That's what Argentina said. It claims.
Okay, so just so I have some context for what's going on here. So the Falklands, I'm assuming, is a British territory down off the coast of South America, and Argentina basically invaded and tried to take it over. Is that what happened?
With the news that Argentina had seized the Falkland Islands, Britain's military bases were put on high alert.
At precisely 10:15 this morning, HMS Invincible, flagship of this extraordinary fleet, slipped her moorings.
At RAF Waddington, they watched Britain's mighty task force set sail to recapture the islands.
The operation and Britain's commitment to this task force had begun.
But they didn't think they'd be seeing any action.
Our initial thought was, oh, dearie me, but can't see us being involved.
Like most people, I heard about the invasion of the Falklands on the television or probably through radio news. I had not the faintest thought that we would be involved.
Waddington had once been the home of Britain's nuclear V-Force.
But
the nuclear deterrent had been handed over to the Navy, and now the V-Force was facing extinction.
Done videos on those. Interesting.
Its once shining fleet of nuclear Vulcan bombers was just 3 months away from being broken up by bulldozers.
I think there was a feeling in the 80s it was the end of an era. The Vulcans were closing down, they'd never been greatly improved, and they weren't going to be improved now.
But all that was about to change.
Prime Minister!
It is a government's objective to see that the islands are freed from occupation and are returned to British administration at the earliest possible moment.
Sorry about pausing it. I just, again, I'm trying to get some context for what's going on here. But so what was the population on the Falklands? Was it primarily just British citizens who basically lived there? Are the Falklands a very British society, kind of like Gibraltar is?
As Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher stirred the nation into a patriotic frenzy, behind the scenes, head of the RAF, Sir Michael Beetham, went to see her with a cunning plan.
She was very enthusiastic. And I said, well, we've got some more work to do, but hopefully we can do it.
Beetham's plan was breathtakingly bold. to send a lone Vulcan bomber 8,000 miles down to the Falklands to blow up the runway at Port Stanley. At one stroke, it would stop the Argentinians using the runway as a base to attack the task force, and it would put the fear of God into the Argentinian people that the Vulcan might be back to bomb them.
Sounds like the end of the world, that noise.
But there was a hitch. The Vulcan itself. Back in the coldest days of the Cold War, the Vulcan was state-of-the-art. It could be in the air within 2 minutes, delivering nuclear bombs into the heartlands of the Soviet Union.
I mean, thank God none of that went on. Can you imagine?
But, devised in the late 1940s by the designer of the Lancaster, the sinister tin triangle was now showing its age.
Well, it was a very nice aircraft. High-tech, I'm not quite so sure. High-tech maybe when it came into service. I mean, I can certainly remember showing ex-Bomber Command people over the Vulcan in the 80s, and they'd say, oh, look at that, Fred, we had that over Berlin in 1944.
The technology in the Vulcan was very old. They said they had a bombing computer. This was driven by wheels, pulleys, bits of bicycle chain, etc. There was nothing electronic in it.
Really?
On Good Friday, RAF Waddington was told to prepare for war.
Uncle Neil, who was a little bit older than the rest of us, said, well, I had a go and it was bloody awful, I tell you. It was the most dangerous thing I've ever done. We said, oh yes, Neil, tell us more.
But he said it was so dangerous, that's the reason the Vulcan stopped doing it. Which, yeah, it was a great start, really.
Carrying out this
Okay, so that was the part that didn't have any audio, so apparently they're talking about the Vulcan doing something that was dangerous. So if you guys know what that is, let me know down in the comments, kind of fill us in on what we missed.
dangerous maneuver meant flying within feet of the refueling tanker. To take fuel, the pilot then had to try to stick the Vulcan's probe into a metal basket trailing behind.
So this is probably what they're talking
about.
about.
There's all sorts of expressions to talk about air-to-air refuelling. Two insects mating in flight is one of them. It is, of course, arranging mid-air collisions between aircraft.
3 of the top Vulcan crews were selected for training.
Okay, so I guess what they're saying is that there would have to, because it's 8,000 miles, they would have to do refueling in the air, and that's what is dangerous. I'm assuming that's what they were talking about. That kind of surprises me a little bit, though, because I thought that mid-air refueling was a pretty common practice. But I don't know if it's just like in the 80s it was harder to do than maybe, maybe technology has advanced enough to where it's easier to do these days. I was just under the impression that that was a common thing to do, so.
But only one would fly the mission. The RAF did not have enough resources to refuel more than one Vulcan all the way to the Falklands.
Really?
The chosen pilots were Squadron Leader Alistair Monty Montgomery, a charismatic and tough Scotsman.
Alistair Montgomery. It's a very British name.
There was a rumour mill, mainly started by fighter pilots, that only fighter pilots could do this stuff of refueling in the air. So we thought, hey, this is our chance, and we were desperate to have a go at it, believe me.
Squadron Leader John Reeve, also eager to have a crack at the runway.
And I personally had absolutely no moral qualms whatsoever about doing this. And in terms of, introspection, are we going to get away with this? Well, compared to having a go at Leningrad, Port Stanley every time for me, please, if you don't mind.
And lastly, the most junior of the bunch, Flight Lieutenant Martin Withers.
I really genuinely thought that I was going to get through my whole time in the RAF without getting involved in any form of conflict, without actually dropping a bomb on anybody in anger. And I must admit, I didn't like the idea of doing it.
But do it they must. And learning to refuel was just the first of many techniques they were going to have to master before they set off for war.
Second, please. Camera now closing out.
Roger.
Is this a
Closing
new?
up behind a big tanker is really quite straightforward, but to actually get the probe into the basket was another matter.
Was this a new
I
thing
spent
at
the
this
next
point?
15 minutes missing to the left, missing to the right, missing below.
2, 1, in. No. He's out.
The crews soon find ways of describing the experience.
Stabbing a wet donut, shoving very warm spaghetti up a cat's backside.
2, 1. Come back right, pushing.
Endless fun, frustrating until you get the hang of it.
Green on.
In peacetime, this would have taken months and months of intensive training.
I'm still trying to get over that guy's description of it. What? Being warm spaghetti up a cat's backside. I would have never thought to describe it like that. They're talking like this is a brand new thing that they've never. They're talking like this is a brand new thing that they've never done before with the Vulcans. So maybe they've just never had to fly it far enough to have to do like a mid-air refueling before, and so this is kind of their first go at it.
Taken months and months of intensive training. They only have 2 weeks. And if they fail, the task force would be at the mercy of Argentinian jets. With the Royal Navy Task Force now just 2 weeks away from the Falklands, the pressure was on. In charge of the Vulcan operation to bomb the runway at Port Stanley was Wing Commander Simon Baldwin. He lived on a diet of bacon sandwiches and pipe tobacco.
All right.
I can't overemphasize how quickly things were happening. I had no time to think. We were just reacting. We were doing things and trying to make things work.
Baldwin sent the crews on practice runs to attack the island of Garvey off the coast of Scotland. The crews had been skillfully trained to drop nuclear bombs, but it had been 10 years since they'd done any conventional bombing.
Wow.
Now they had to relearn techniques that dated back to World War II, using the same iron bombs dropped from Lancasters.
We dropped these bombs and you felt them go off sort of underneath you.
Poor
It's
rocks.
pretty exciting stuff just to do that without anyone shooting at you.
The crews loved it, but the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds were understandably not happy.
Oh yeah.
And the RSPB were absolutely devastated that we were wiping out seagulls at Garvey Island and requested that we stop doing it immediately. We were trying to go to war, but they didn't seem to appreciate that. We felt very sorry for the seagulls. He lies.
I feel sorry for this eagle.
The crews were going to have to hit a runway just 120 feet wide.
So this is really intriguing to me. I would have thought that the Vulcan would have... Well, my thoughts were going, it's interesting to me that they didn't have these practice bombings, all the time, just as training exercises. But this actually makes sense. If the Vulcan bombers were getting ready to retire, why would they be training with them? So I guess maybe that's the logic behind all of this.
This demanded a degree of accuracy not normally required with nuclear bombs.
With the Vulcan, the accuracy that we had, we'd be quite lucky to hit the runway at all.
And while the crew might miss the target, it looked increasingly likely that the Argentinians would hit the Vulcan. When Baldwin received the latest intelligence on the air defenses at Port Stanley, it made sober reading. The dossier revealed that the Argentinians had state-of-the-art weaponry, including the Tiger Cat, built by the British.
We were going in against the Argentinians with really modern radar-laid guns, big shells, explosive shells that they could fire at goodness only knows how many per second, which could easily shoot a Vulcan out of the sky. Going in at low level at night I didn't really see how we could survive it.
Let me ask you guys this as well. Would it have been too dangerous to send like an aircraft carrier with some jets, or maybe, I don't know if you could put a Vulcan on an aircraft carrier or not. Maybe they're too big to do that. But was there no possible scenario in which they could have, you know, put planes on an aircraft carrier and at least gotten closer to Argentina to be able to hit them from the carrier? You know, was there a military base closer to South America where they might have had, you know, planes or fighters that they could have used instead of the Vulcan bomber? Or were they just too worried about doing that because they knew that Argentina had their own jets that they could probably, you know, fly out to sea and just bomb an aircraft carrier? But I don't know what the range of those would be, you know, so I'm sure that none of those scenarios probably were viable since they didn't do it. I wonder about it anyway, and maybe some of you guys can explain why they chose to go this route.
Crews were told to make their wills.
You can't get around the fact it's a war. And you write out your will and you take the dog for a walk around Harmston Village and you think, I wonder if I'll ever see that place again.
Right, should you be captured at all, and they will give you the opportunity to write a letter.
And in case they did survive and were captured, they were taught how to write secret coded messages and what to do if they were paraded in front of enemy TV cameras.
Smart.
I found it quite amusing when they said, right, if you're telling the truth, scratch the right-hand side of your nose. If you're telling a lie under duress, scratch the left-hand side of your nose.
We have to recover those islands, for the people on them are British, of British stock, and they still owe allegiance to the Crown.
As the task force continues southwards, the government has given more details of the merchant ships.
With the task force a week away from the Falklands, Mrs. Thatcher still hoped that regular TV updates showing that the British mint business would be enough to send the Argentinians packing.
Well, they do have carriers down there.
For a possible landing on the Falklands.
The Royal Air Force has already shown pictures of their Vulcan bombers converted from the nuclear bombing role to that of conventional bombing.
Exhausted from round-the-clock training, the Vulcan crews now found that their supposedly secret mission was part of that message. Watch out, the Brits are coming.
To reach the Falklands, they would have to fly the bombers from Ascension Island, refueling them in mid-air.
Our attitude to it was, oh, great, why don't you give them the date and time? You've given them everything else.
That's what I was just thinking. Why would you do that?
On Monday the 26th, Sir Michael Beetham, head of the RAF, arrived to rally the troops and told them the mission was on.
I really wanted then for the crews to see me and to wish them well. They were, after all, embarking, as I told them, on a dangerous mission, but they could do it.
Reeve volunteered for the mission.
For once, I put myself forward a little bit, because normally I'm not bothered. Give me an aircraft to fly and I'm perfectly happy. But I remember saying, there is no way you can keep me out of this.
Reeve landed the top job. Withers was told he would also be flying, but only as backup. Monty was sent to oversee the operation from Ascension.
From Ascension?
Soon, they would be off to war.
Saying goodbye was not easy. It's a thing I'd never done before. I'd never said goodbye and gone off to war. I know it sounds very dramatic, but it was possible that we might not return.
It was probably ideal. I saw her for about half a minute. Just time to say bye-bye. And the strangest thought crossed my mind. You know, my father was in the war, in the Navy during the war, and he didn't see my mother for years on end. And I thought, you know, in just a little way, this is what tens of thousands of people have done before. And now it's my turn.
The night before we fly down, obviously you chat to the wife. Pat was tremendously supportive, and I had no qualms at all about going. I knew if anything happened to me, she'd look after the kids fine. There was no problem at all.
The two Vulcan crews prepared to take off for their midway base on Ascension Island.
Oh, Ascension Island. So they do have a place closer that they're going to be going from. Okay.
It was a miracle. In just 3 weeks, Waddington had gone from a peacetime base onto a full war footing.
I don't know where Ascension Island is, though.
Transforming near obsolete bombers into new fighting machines. Eight hours later, the two Vulcans were circling the British island of Ascension. This remote volcanic outpost was a perfect base for the attack on Port Stanley.
Ascension Island was amazing. It was just unbelievable. I still can remember just sort of circling around and seeing this strange-looking island, a volcanic island. Looked like one big slag heap, really, on the western side. Very unattractive.
The place was heaving, absolutely heaving. It really was something where something was happening. You think, oh, quite pleased to be part of this.
Ascension had become the busiest airport on the planet. The Vulcans arrived to find a huge armada of 12 Victor aircraft, the refueling tankers that would take the Vulcan down to the Falklands. That evening, with a 50th birthday party to celebrate, Withers and his crew hit the town.
We had to find somewhere to go and celebrate that night, and we found more than one place to celebrate.
Happy birthday. We had a few drinks, and we had a few drinks more, and suddenly I'm 50 years old. We must have got to bed 2:30 in the morning.
Oh my
Waking
gosh.
up with a little bit of a hangover the next day.
Probably not good. Are you gonna fly that day?
Later that morning, the RAF sent a signal. The mission, codename Operation Blackbuck, was on for 11 o'clock that night. It was time for one final check on the Vulcan's payload.
Suddenly you're looking at 1,000 bombs, and you realise that that means business.
It was going to take a staggering 11 Victor tankers to refuel the one Vulcan on its 8,000-mile round trip.
11 tankers?
Group Captain Jeremy Price led the team to thrash out a plan.
Yes, what you're saying.
The refueling plan was very, very complex. It was something that had never been tried before, and a lot of the work was done on a £5 pocket calculator bought in Swaffham Market.
The plan is that this vast armada flies to the first refueling point. Half the Victors refuel the other half, one Victor refuels the Vulcan, and then those aircraft return to base. The procedure is repeated at the next refueling point, and again, until there's just one Victor left to refuel the Vulcan before its final run-in to the target.
Wow.
And it was really a question of Victors refueling, Victors refueling, Victors refueling, and it went on and on and on. And all the time, the formation was being reduced as one Victor had given all its fuel and had to go back to Ascension.
It's pretty
We
ingenious.
had never seen anything like this refueling plan. The real unknown was just how much fuel that Vulcan was going to burn. We used the best information we had, but we had a horrible nagging feeling that it might not be good enough.
If they'd got the plan wrong, aircraft could end up ditching in the freezing South Atlantic Ocean with no hope of rescue.
See, that's why would you not have an aircraft carrier available to take those planes back? I mean, that's what I'm wondering about. Why are they not using an aircraft carrier for this? Because that would allow you to at least have a base in the ocean somewhere to fly to if you need it. Again, like, I'm not an expert. Maybe there's a reason they can't do it. You guys are gonna have to let me know.
Gentlemen, come in.
The aircrews assembled for the final briefing on Ascension Island.
Okay, gentlemen, this is a secret briefing.
In a few hours, the mission to bomb the runway at Port Stanley would be taking off on the 8,000-mile round trip.
At the back. Right, well, as you know, the reason that we're here is to have a look at the whole refueling operation.
It was the most complicated refueling plane I'd ever seen. To be honest, I picked up probably 60% of what was going on.
2 hours, it's difficult to be
I couldn't take it all in. It would have taken me ages, but I was able to turn to Dick Russell and say to him, do you understand that?
And I had to draw a breath and say, well, yes, I do, with my fingers crossed behind my back.
And these are the final points to remember. So, gentlemen,
And from that, cup of tea, disperse, out to the aircraft, ready to go.
Okay, so we're about at the halfway point, and I wanted to go ahead and stop it before we get into the actual operation. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this goes. Now, I think it was a successful bombing from what you guys have told me in the past in the comments on some of my videos, but it'll be interesting to see if it goes as planned or if they have to deviate from the plan a little bit. Yeah, I'm just looking forward to just learning more about what actually happened, because I don't really know anything about the Falklands War, and honestly, before starting my channel and doing these videos, I had never even heard of it before. So this is something brand new that I'm learning about here. So yeah, I guess I just have some questions about why they're making the decisions to do the things that they're doing, because they're not really explaining that in the documentary, so that's why I'm asking you guys. Maybe you can clear up some of that for me. And I also just wanted to look up where Ascension Island is, because I don't know. It's a volcanic island south of the equator in the South Atlantic Ocean. Okay, so this picture kind of gives us an idea here. So it's about, okay, yeah, it's actually down fairly close to South America. So they still had to have refueling from that point. I thought that they were going to come all the way down from the UK down to Argentina, but that's not the case. They're actually starting out way closer than I thought they were. Wow, that's interesting. So whereabouts were the aircraft carriers then? Were they stationed, were they down in this region too, or were they coming from the UK? And also, like, I wonder, coming back to Ascension Island, if they had to do the same refueling thing as well, because I'm assuming they need that amount of fuel to get back as well. So I guess they can't get too close to South America with their aircraft carriers, or they risk it being bombed by Argentina. Which brings me to the other question: how capable was Argentina's military at the time? Like, I've actually never even thought about Argentina's military. Obviously they have state-of-the-art weapons, maybe anti-aircraft weapons, you know, kind of what they talked about in here. You know, how much of a threat was it actually to the UK? Like, how big is it compared to the UK's military? Yeah, I just wonder about Argentina. And also, while I'm here, I just want to look up the Falkland Islands, where they are as well, because, oh, they're way down here. Okay, I thought that they would be further up, so they're way down here, almost at the Arctic or Antarctic Circle. Okay, well, there you have it. There's part 1 of the Operation Black Buck. We'll have part 2 out hopefully tomorrow. Like I said, kind of like on the edge of my seat now, like wondering what's gonna happen. So yeah, please answer all of my questions in the comments below if you're able to. And also, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe. I would appreciate it. I also have a Patreon where I do videos that I can't do here on YouTube. I got a bunch of videos over there on Patreon if you're interested in checking that out. The link is in the description and pinned comment. I've got all my social media links there as well. And I have a Star Trek podcast for all you Trekkies out there. If you want to check that out, you'll find the links there also with everything else. Anyway, Roger Scarlett and I thank you guys for watching. We'll see you for part 2 of Operation Black Book coming up shortly.